Wonderful ones. It's Elizabeth with Willow Root Tarot, and today I am reading from Way of the Horse. We see here the photo of this is the box, which gives us the information, the title, and the author, the illustrator, noting that it's a second edition. And then we have the card in the left-hand side, and that's going to be card 34. And these are illustrations. Each one, I'll be pulling a series of these cards today. Not photographs. Some really do look like they were captured in life, but these illustrations are truly amazing. So let's go ahead and go to the book. I'll say a few things about the card itself. Card 34, Chiron, is going to be this card, but 34, 3 plus 4 is 7. And we have chariot energy here in my mind because key 7 in the major arcana of tarot is the chariot. It's very basically put, this is an excellent chariot. The chariot in Rider-Waite-Smith or RWS is a person actually embedded within the structure of a chariot. They are one and the same. Yes, my legs move me forward, but I am of my legs. My legs are of me. It is one thing. And here, we certainly do have this half man, half horse. So let's go ahead and read on Chiron. Now, I will say, guys, that this particular deck is not something that I share from overly often because some of the cards can be very lengthy. So what I'd like to offer, guys, is while I drop these videos today, there's going to be a series of them. I'm going to be staggering the release on YouTube. So when you're on Marco Polo and you're with my Sharecast, you get everything all at once. But if you'd like to have it as a more of a slow release and also where you can check the titles of the videos to maybe try to find what you're looking for rather than scrolling through on the Sharecast, go check out my YouTube channel. And that's going to be Willow Root Tarot. All right, guys, let's go ahead and read on Chiron, card 34. So we have some key thoughts on this card to begin with. The author offers multidisciplinary genius, holistic healing, the wounded healer. And the card description, a centaur rears with power and focus, aiming his bow at the heavens. Now, this book will offer each card as the gift, the challenge, and the journey. So the gift, the organic synergy of instinct, intuition, and reason gives rise to true brilliance. The challenge, a deeper integration of body, mind, and spirit sometimes emerges through an illness or accident. Healing requires accessing the wisdom behind the wound. Boy, I have goosebumps on that one. And then we have the journey. In Greek mythology, Chiron was a master musician, a wise philosopher, a powerful oracle, a respected astronomer, and an innovative teacher wielding an unusually eclectic body of knowledge. Somewhere along the way, he also invented the healing arts. You might say Chiron was the ultimate Renaissance man, except for the fact that he was half horse. At a time when the Greeks were experimenting with a brand new concept called reason, their mythic imagination was already compensating for logic's limitations through the story of a compassionate, innovative, well-cultured centaur. Chiron's maverick fusion of humanity and nature in one fleet-footed, four-legged body symbolized the ingredients of true genius. Even so, his legend fell into obscurity as civilization became ever more attracted to technology, materialism, and abstract reason, only to be resurrected at the end of the 20th century through interest in mind-body medicine. According to the philosopher Christian de Quincy, the modern world's over-reliance on reason is actually a distortion of reason, one that robs us of our potential brilliance. In his books, Radical Nature, Rediscovering the Soul of Matter, and Radical Knowing, Understanding Consciousness Through Relationship, he makes the distinction between grounded or embodied reason and the kind of disconnected, mechanistic thinking that has become prevalent in our society. He also cites Socrates, Plato, and Immanuel Kant among those great thinkers who truly understood the difference. Clear, embodied reason knows that the limits of reason are not the limits of knowledge, and certainly not the limits of reality. De Quincey writes in Radical Knowing, "Here's the dilemma. On the one hand, we have lost touch with the deep foundation of reason in the feelings of the body and the network of feelings in nature. On the other hand, we have not made full use of the gift of reason we already have. Our problem then is not really too much, but not enough reason, not enough of the right kind. Clear reason, rooted in the feelings of the body and open to transcendental shafts of wisdom." The image of the centaur pointed to this synthesis over 2,000 years ago, though some of these ancient half-man, half-horse figures clearly lack self-control. They were a rowdy, drunken bunch until Chiron came along and brought the potential of this archetype to fruition. Yet perhaps even more important, Chiron's dynamic myth revealed a template for healing that transmuted difficulties into gifts and traumas into sources of strength. Some of the most famous heroes of ancient Greece, Jason and Achilles among them, studied with the centaur, who not only strengthened their bodies and sharpened their minds, but instructed them in the soulful art of discovering their destiny. Yet Chiron's own privileged path was altered by a seemingly senseless accident. During archery practice, one of his prized students mistakenly shot Chiron in the knee with a poison arrow. Delirious and limping in agony, he retreated to an underground cavern to repair what would have been a fatal wound for the average mortal. In trying different remedies, Chiron created the healing arts and went on to teach these skills to Acephalus, the Greek god of medicine. And I'm going to pause here and say, please Google any of my pronunciations, because I'm pretty sure I'm saying some wrong. Thank you, I love you. In 1977, this nearly forgotten story was resurrected when the astronomer Charles T. Cowell discovered a small, yet unusually bright object orbiting between Saturn and Uranus, which he named after the legendary centaur. Exhibiting the characteristics of a comet, while measuring over 50,000 times the typical comet's volume, Chiron became one of those rare bodies in the solar system to be classified as both a comet and a minor planet. In orbit, its orbit also proved more eccentric than originally anticipated, crossing those of Saturn and Uranus. Astrologers subsequently combined the myth of the centaur with the comet planet's unusual characteristics to create a symbolic picture of Chiron's influence on earthly life. The placement of Chiron in a person's astrological chart is said to indicate a point where she was deeply wounded, a place that paradoxically holds the seeds of her greatest gifts. Through a potent series of synchronicities, Chiron ushers in the era of the wounded healer. As a centaur, he symbolizes the multidisciplinary genius that arises from reuniting body, mind, instinct, intuition, and reason. His holistic approach to teaching and healing integrates the physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, and relational aspects of the individual. The symbols combine human and animal form, dual status as a comet and minor planet, and unusual orbit support the archetype's function as a bridge between multiple states of being. According to the stariq.com website, Chironic people often strive to grow new ideas into existing forms and bring structure to innovative ideas. The timing of Chiron's discovery with the rise of alternative medicine in the late 1970s captured the imagination of body-mind researchers and somatic psychotherapists who embraced the centaur as a kind of patron saint. A number of counseling services worldwide incorporated Chiron into their business name, designating a form of therapy that looks for the gift behind the wound. The Chiron Center for Body Psychotherapy in London actually teaches therapists to stay connected to their own wounds and vulnerabilities as the basis for understanding and meeting both the pain and the potential of those they work with. In its online brochure, the organization reveals that the archetype of the wounded healer also has implications for the power dynamic in therapy and offers a position which complements the stereotype commonly held of the therapist as near omniscient and all-powerful. The benign face of this image is a wise guide and good parent, but this is necessarily shadowed by the potential for manipulation, exploitation, and abuse. The therapist, as wounded healer, stays connected to his or her own pain and is not as easily seduced by inflation or the client's need that the therapist be sorted out, together, or beyond pain and conflict. The Chiron archetype guards against the temptation to fix others while ignoring one's own unresolved challenges and traumas. His journey also suggests that accidents and illnesses are less a sign of weakness or punishment by the gods than opportunities for expansion and innovation. Moshe Feldenkrais, whose work so profoundly influenced the horse trainer and author Linda Tellington-Jones, embodied the Chiron archetype to the point of gaining his insights from a wounded knee. A soccer injury left him virtually disabled, yet he refused to accept a hopeless diagnosis. Like the centaur, Feldenkrais retreated into a period of intense isolation and self-discovery, somehow believing that he could recreate the exploratory consciousness of the newborn. He might learn to walk again. In the process, he explored multiple possibilities of movement, healing his knee, and discovering ways of teaching others to recover their sensual learning abilities. Today, his functional integration and awareness through movement techniques are practiced worldwide. Yet the somatic psychotherapist Don Hanlon Johnson found that people who teach the techniques of Feldenkrais and other mavericks often emphasize the method while failing to live the meaning behind it. Practitioners are trained to imitate the moves developed by the founder without being prompted to explore the radical conversion he or she underwent. He stresses in his book, Body, Recovering Our Sensual Wisdom. The same can be said of many people attracted to innovative equine training or therapeutic techniques. Sooner or later, however, the horses themselves conspire to lead us to a deeper level. Sometimes we come across the one horse in 100 who simply won't cooperate with a method promoted as the one true right way. Other times, a promising athlete gets injured. When we've run through all the experts, receiving yet another hopeless diagnosis, the temptation to sell or retire this four-legged challenge can be overwhelming. Yet sometimes, by giving up our conventional ambitions and following this horse off the beaten path, we find we have, through much experimentation and soul-searching, learned something new that we can teach to others. The wounded healer archetype also lives in the horses themselves. To habitually view them as children or victims that must be sheltered, molded, coddled, or endlessly rehabilitated is human hubris disguised as caretaking. To experience the power of chironic intelligence manifesting through these animals, we must ultimately be willing to see them as sentient beings with a destiny all their own, an ability to take care of their own, and a remarkable talent for taking care of us. One of my favorite quotes is attributed to an anonymous Aboriginal woman who obviously had much to teach the missionaries and social workers sent to rescue her from life in the Australian outback. "If you have come to help me, you're wasting your time," she told them. "But if you have come because your liberation is bound with mine, then let us work together." My equine colleagues constantly convey a similar sentiment. Working in the fields of equine facilitated psychotherapy and experiential learning, I've witnessed animals considered too old, lame, or emotionally damaged come to life when given the opportunity to help people move through physical, emotional, and spiritual challenges. Many clients at first feel sorry for these horses. Interacting with a formerly abused herd member, they want to protect him, massage him, apologize to him on behalf of the whole human race. And yet he gives them a cold shoulder for their efforts until they see him for the wise teacher he's become through the crucible of adversity. When we recognize and nourish the gifts behind their wounds, horses reveal themselves to be strong, capable, whole, and we can't help but be transformed in the process. Ultimately, Chiron reminds us that the horse-human relationship is a tremendous source of healing, older than the centaur himself.